Hi humans, how are you doing? How's your day 7? How did it go? Well, for me, it went pretty good. I am still on this taking things really slow and just really trying to seek God in a different way, not listening to too much podcasts, like I said, no sermons. Not that I'm not listening to sermons or podcasts or not listening to music. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that usually I go 100 miles an hour and I'm listening to all types of things and I'm taking notes from everywhere and reading a billion books. I'm always going 100 miles an hour. But this year I've decided to just be still and just work on silently seeking God, and not that the world is silent or that God is silent, but that I am just going to sit in silence a little bit and just try to listen to God and listen to my body, listen to my environment, and just kind of see where my place is in this earth. So that's kind of what this fasting has been for me. This praying time has been more authentic. Not that it hasn't been in the past. I just mean it's been a very different experience. And I did listen to worship music. I will have to admit, my favorite type of worship music is Spanish worship. I love to listen to worship music in Spanish, and so I harassed my cousin again and again, because I do that all the time, asking him for some worship music, and he sent me a playlist that I really love. And on one of the songs, it says tu mirada, which is your gaze, and it talks about God's gaze on us. And it's almost as if the song is a prayer from me or whoever's singing that to God. And it's talking about his gaze on me and what that does to me and how it makes me feel. And it's such a beautiful song. I mean, I feel like the words in English don't express the passion that comes with it, the sincerity, the hunger and the desire. I just feel I can't articulate it in English. But it says, it's a prayer, it's a reflection. It says, God sees everything in my heart. Nothing can be hidden. Without God, I am nothing. God's faithful gaze knows and transforms me. And it's just his gaze. And that's why that's so impactful to me, because it's talking about he's not doing anything. It's just when he looks at me, me knowing that I am his daughter, me knowing that God is there for me, me knowing that he is just looking at me, just brings me to a place of humility, because I don't feel worthy enough of that. But it's just a place of where I can exhale and have such comfort, because I know that he sees where I'm at. He sees where I've been and he sees where I'm going, and he's still there. And so it brought me such peace, and it reminded me that I am in that place. I am in the green pastures that we were talking about in Psalms 23. And so that's where I started. And then I went to my devotional. And have you ever experienced where somebody says something to you, or about someone that you love and care for, or about something that you strongly believe in, and as soon as they say something, you quickly have to come back at it with a defense. You quickly have to explain it. You quickly have to justify it because you feel so strongly about it? Have you ever experienced that? I've experienced it personally about myself. But today, ironic enough, in my devotional, in Emotionally Healthy Spirituality is the book that I'm working on. It was talking about Jacob. And of course, we know Jacob, Israel, right? And I was laughing at myself because as I was reading the devotional, I quickly got a little aggressive, a little defensive. And I'm like, what am I reading? Because they're talking about Jacob, and he's talking about how he's manipulative, deceptive, aggressive, comes from a dysfunctional family. He doesn't trust people. He doesn't even trust God. And I'm like, wait a minute. Is that the Jacob that I know? Is that the Jacob that God? I mean, when we say the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, I'm like, is that the Jacob they're talking about? Like, how can they be talking like that about about Jacob. So I'm reading them, and then I go back to the author, and I'm like, do I trust this? Do I trust what I'm reading? So immediately, I'm like, okay, where would someone get that in the Bible? Where would someone come to that conclusion in the Bible? And so, because a couple of them, I was like, he comes from a dysfunctional family. Yeah, we know that his mom favored him and his dad favored his brother. So there's that favoritism. So a little dysfunction comes from that. We know that his mom taught him to be deceitful. Yeah, there's a little dysfunction in that. Yeah, there's rivalry between Jacob and Esau from the womb. So yeah, there's a little dysfunctional family issues that I'm sure kind of progressed as he was growing up. So I got that statement, but with all the other things, I was like, wait a minute. And so I went back and I looked, and I was like, oh, well, you're right. That is pretty deceitful. Oh, you're right. That's pretty manipulative. Oh, you're right. So I went back and I looked all that up, and then I just kind of laughed because I was sitting there like, my quick reflex was, I'm going to defend a man of God, right? And then I paused and I laughed at myself because I have found myself doing that. A lot of the times I do that. A lot of times I have found myself having to do that, justify and explain why I do what I do, why I said what I said. Like, there's just so much that makes me different than a lot of people. And so I have to explain things, and I feel like my explanation may come out as a justification or as a defense, and it just snowballs into these other things that don't need to. But I was laughing because I originally, when I was reading that devotional, I felt like they were making Jacob to be like a villain. And I ended my moment with God and his word as realizing that Jacob was a mirror to me. You know, there's things in my life that I have had to explain, I have to justify, and I have to come quick to my own defense and explanation of why I did what I did or how I do it. And there's things in real life, things in work life, things in church life, things in relationships, things in friendships, just existing as a human being. I have found myself in that space before where I constantly have to explain myself. And I did that even for Jacob in the Bible, who needs no defense. But I realized that was my own default setting. So again, this prayer and fasting and seeking God genuinely is more about finding out who I am, how I am, and how I can just genuinely seek God and seek his attributes and his characteristics and see how God responds to things and emulate that and be more like that. Because in that same story about Jacob, in Genesis 32, 22, 26, around there to the 30, he struggled. He struggled with an angel. They'll say that an angel, they'll say it was God, they'll say it was another man, but he struggled with a spiritual being. And in that struggle, because he struggled there and he fought with God, his name was changed from Jacob, the deceiver, the manipulative God, to Israel. And Israel became the nation of God, God's people. And Israel means the one who struggles with God. So initially I thought they were painting him out to be a villain, but at the end of the day, it was a mirror for me. That no matter where I've been, no matter what I've done, no matter the good, the bad, or the ugly, I still struggle with God. I still fight with God. And I pray that I will always have that fight within me and that desire to seek God and to fight for his blessing, to fight for his covering, to fight for eternity. And I'm praying for you. I'm praying that you fight God and that you encounter God in your own ways, but understanding that struggling with God and fighting with God and going through all the things with God, that's what we went along for. Jacob could have just given up and kept his lifestyle of being deceitful and manipulative and stubborn and all the things that he was, but he fought with God and he won. It says that he won, and that's the reason he won, because he survived. That's why he won. It's not that he was bigger and better and stronger than God, but he survived the presence of God, because back then you didn't survive the presence of God, but he did. So today, you and I get to survive the presence of God. Have an amazing day.